Hi everyone! Today in this interaction we are going to be talking you about English culture, history, religion and reality. We are going to talk you about kings and queens, but it is not fantasy. Indeed, it's about the real characters that inspire the stories that you listen since you are a baby.
Hi everyone. Rosa, the first question is, how did England become a Protestant nation, and what do you think? What is your opinion about this?
Okay. Well, the first you should know is that in Britain there was no register of any belief before the Celtic invasion in the 7th century before Christ. Celtics accept Druidism, a, a pagan worship, but this influence only lasted until the arrival of the Roman invasion that happens in the century 1 before Christ. Um, During Roman rule, Christianity was imposed, and Celtic customs were considered heresies and eradicated with terrible violence.
It's true. But another thing to keep in mind is that Protestantism is a branch of Christianity and emerged from Catholicism. In the so-called Protestant Reformation advanced by Martin Luther in the 15th century.
Okay. Well, to answer your question, uh, I know that in the mid 16th century, between 1534 and 1568, in England, there was a complicated political situation that led to the strengthening of Protestantism. In just 24 years, there were five different monarchs. The first was Henry VIII, who created an act of supremacy to proclaim himself the authority of the Church in England and it to the power and laws of the Pope of the Roman Pope. Later in 1551, he was replaced on the throne by his son Edward VI, only 9 years old, in whose government the Common Prayer Book was created, and the most effective advances of the Anglican Church were established. Uh, After his death, Jane Grey governs just for a few days, but after a revolt, Mary I of England is crowned, who restored Catholicism and eradicates all contrary manifestations. After that, Elizabeth was crowned in 1558, and she restores the act of supremacy, creates an environment of tolerance and peace between different religious currents, and creates the act of uniformity, which other all churches to use the standard prayer book uh, written in English. Because she commanded respect for all religion belief, the Anglican Church was established, and Martin Luther's Reformation and other Protestant doctrines developed in the territory. Um, Bearing in mind that this was a very controversial issue and may currently be controversial, what do you think, Danisa, are most important implications that this brought the country?
I think that among all consequences, I consider that the most important The first consequence is that the English monarchy becomes independent of the authority of the Roman Church. It's a form of government that has been maintained. The Anglican Church and various Protestant doctrines that survive today arise. The Protestantism spread throughout all the English colonies and reached America through the invasion of the United States. United States.
Okay. Also, I think that the idea of sharing the gospel encourages literacy and intellectual awakening. I think the most beautiful literary and film productions of all time are a heritage of religious and cultural dispute that was carried out between the Celts and the Romans. Um, Peace and stability allow Britons focus on on other things like economic development and intellectual awakening. Due to this and his expansionist policies, England became a world power.
Yes, because of this, I believe that there are several differences that can exist between Colombia and UK. The one follow in the UK, and thanks to the Queen Elizabeth Act of Independence, immigrants can exercise their religions in the United Kingdom. It's important to highlight that 97% of the Colombian population is Catholic, and this gives rise to many differences, but among the main ones we consider the following. First, the Catholics who follow the Roman Church. There is the Pope as the father of all the churches around the world. Well, in the United Kingdom, they have the Queen or the king as their highest representative before God. In other hand, in the Catholic Church, the women aren't allowed to perform the priesthood, and neither are parents allowed to marry. In the Anglican Church, homosexual marriage is very normal. The priests can marry, etc. The Catholic Church in Rome follows 7 sacraments. Will the UK they only follow 2. And the last one, but not least, for both Catholics and Anglicans, the Virgin Mary is the Mother of God. But the difference is that the Anglicans don't have the dogmas of the Immaculate Conception and the Assumption, because this characteristic is proper to the Catholics. Among so many differences and similarities, we consider this to be among the most important aspects.
Okay, it is very hilarious how the personal things or the personal problems of these monarchs can affect the relation of uh, much people. Uh, okay, I would like to say that just as in England, people can choose their religion. Since the reform of the Constitution of 1991 in Colombia, we have a freedom of worship. It's legal now. According to a research carried out by the Universidad Nacional of Colombia in alliance with other entities, here in Colombia, the 50 57% of Colombians identify themselves as Catholics. 21% identify themselves as Protestants, and there is also a significant number of people essence, especially young people who consider themselves not attached to any religion or declare themselves atheist, agnostic, and belonging to other religions. Uh, Finally, I can say that the influence of the English culture touches because we have had adopted some customs, uh, and we can see, for example, films like Robin Hood, Frozen, King Arthur, that show us this beautiful and interesting English culture. So, Danitza, it was a pleasure talk with you about this, and see you soon.
Okay, it's a pleasure to share and learn a little more about this English culture. And yeah, this is all. Thank you so much for being here, and see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.